So welcome. Thank you for joining me for this Introduction to Blackboard Ultra session. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at a couple of key differences between Ultra and Original. We'll talk about the fun things in Ultra, the reasons to move to Ultra, and a couple of the reasons why you might want to wait. We'll look at sort of what that course conversion training is going to be like for the semester and UAA's timeline a little bit. And I do want to leave some time at the end to go through your questions. The first point that I want to make about Blackboard Ultra is that this is a change inside our Blackboard platform. It is all Blackboard. So students go to the same place. They can see their courses, and if you have it in list view like this, there's a choice when you go to your course list, whether you have it in tile view with the squares or whether you have it in list view. But you'll see in list view, it even says original course view beside the course if it's an original. That will go away if it's an Ultra. But really what we're looking at is original course view or Ultra course view. That is a change that we make at the course level. Your students access the course the same way, you access the course the same way. What we're looking at is what happens once you're inside the course. And you can tell pretty quickly when you're looking at a course, whether it's an original or an Ultra. So those original courses, you're going to have that course menu on the left. You can customize that as an instructor. We do have some defaults that are there when you go into a new course shell. But as an instructor, you can go in and edit those. You can decide what's useful for your course, what's on that left menu. It also normally opens to the announcement section when you go into your course. That too is customizable. If for whatever reason your course doesn't use announcements, you can change that. But we've tried to make that the defaults and have it be fairly consistent across courses for students. For Ultra, instead, we're going to have this menu at the top instead of on the side. And the menu is not customizable. It's going to have the same things regardless of what course you're in, regardless of what course the student's in. Now, some of these things like analytics, that only shows for instructors. That's where you can go to get those sort of data breakdowns. But your course is going to have discussions on that top course menu, even if you aren't using discussions in the course. It's just going to be there. And you'll notice this is the landing page that's always going to open to that course content. And these would be the equivalent, the modules or learning or folders here would be the equivalent of those sections that you have in original. Now, one of the reasons for this is because students spend a lot of time learning how to navigate each course. It's not that difficult for us as instructors because we set it up in a way that's logical for our subject. But for students where they're juggling different courses and different subjects, they can spend a lot of time trying to remember, wait, where do I submit assignments in this course? How do I do this? How do I make sure I'm not missing things? And by having the course be more consistent from course to course, that simplifies that student experience. The general rule of thumb for Ultra is that it's going to be a little cleaner, it's going to be a little easier, but in exchange for that, you have fewer choices and fewer options. And here, let me go out of this and go into a course. When I go into a course, if it's the first time and there's a new announcement, then when you enter the course, you'll get this pop up with whatever that announcement is to go through. And you also have that option to see all announcements. There's a little checkbox here or dot where you can mark that as read so that it stops telling you that you have an unread announcement every time you come into the course, which is a change for students and it's a change in how we communicate. You can still push those announcements out in email. So you can make sure students are getting it that way as well. Now, the main differences here, you can probably see it's cleaner, right? That the appearance is cleaner, the navigation is a little easier. Instead of going into things that then go into things and then you're not sure where you are in the course, this outer navigation level is all going to open and close on the same page. It's just expanding. And then if you click into something, that will open as a layer on top of the course, Closing that will take us back to the main course. And you'll see that we also have this progress tracker turned on here. This is optional. You can choose whether or not to turn it on for your course. But if it's on, then students will see these things, right? 2 out of 3 completed, or I go in here and click into something. Open that up. Now it's going to show me that I've started that item, and I can mark that I did everything I need to do in that item by checking it completed. If it's something where you're submitting an assignment or taking a test or posting on a discussion board, it will automatically do that after the student submits it, so that this progress tracker tells the student where to start when they come back into a course. This is particularly helpful for online asynchronous courses, for courses that are no set time. I think it's important to tell students how you're using it and that that's not actually part of how you're grading them. And I try not to go in and check the progress tracker unless a specific question comes up. And there are times where somebody will come to me with a question, and if they've already gone through all of our training videos on the topic, I don't want to say like, well, module 3 had a bunch of training videos on this topic. Go look at them and have them be like, I did, it didn't help. But I will go and check, because if they haven't gotten to module 3, then I can send back this message of like, well, if you jump ahead to module 3, you'll see some training videos. And so I will occasionally use that progress tracker to customize my interactions. Okay, under progress tracker, on to how to edit. So if you're in original, a lot of the time you're starting with that build content button at the top. Here we can add that wherever we want. We don't need to add it automatically at the bottom of a section. So you can see in between everything, I have this line with a little circle plus add icon. I can also go inside an item, click to open it, and then add it between items here and go create. It's a much shorter list. And our main sort of content is going to be document for providing information. Assessment, you can see you have test, assignment, discussion, journal. Form is mostly if you're collecting data. But for now, I'm going to create a document, give it a name. The default for everything is hidden from students. When I'm ready to make it available, then I can change that to visible here. And I can put it in a description that will show at the top level, but I can start adding those blocks of content. I can add images. I can use sort of multiple columns for layout here. But this is a simpler menu than what you're used to seeing in a text editor and original. They've really tried to streamline it and focus on accessibility there. And I'm going to go ahead and close my exciting name document. If I decide it needs to be somewhere else, it's easy to drag and drop that either to a different place in this module, or I can drag and drop it into, let me open this one up, a different module. And if I want to copy content in, I can copy content in to one spot. So I can pick exactly where I want that item to go, copy it in there. In original, we pushed content from an old course. In Ultra, we pull content into the new course. And we can pull in whatever content we want. So I can say from this course, I want to go in and I'm going to take, no, I don't need the whole folder. I really just need this overview of learning styles folder. And then from a different course, and I see a question about whether we can copy from Blackboard Original. Yes, we absolutely can. So I'm going to go to this old dev shell that I have, which is in Blackboard Original. Let's say I want this entire folder, or I want to just go in and select one specific thing, hit start copy, it will bring those things in. So I can copy from multiple courses at the same time. I can bring over folders, I can bring over individual items. I don't need to do sort of one big course copy. I can do all of these small ones as I need it, as I'm filling out my organizational structure. What this means is that you don't have to take a completely developed original course and copy it over or convert it to Ultra. You can build that Ultra shell with those modules and add the items as you're building it. And the reason I say modules is that for Ultra, you can't do as much customization here. If you do a folder, you don't get to put an image on it. I like having the image. I like using the module. And the folders also don't do that same progress tracking for are you complete for this folder the same way that the module does. So the modules are really going to be our main organizational structure. If I added that content and then realized, oh, I added it outside the module and I meant to have it in the module, I can move things around just with that drag and drop. Oh, can't move that one. I can move perusal. But you'll notice it gave me that warning. I can't put a module inside another module. In original, you can have this recursive structure where you have folders and subfolders and subfolders and subfolders. Here you get two levels. It's really trying to keep it sort of simpler. So for content that would be on that old build content menu that you don't see here, a lot of that is going to be in what is labeled the content market. I think that's a very misleading name, but this is where we would go ahead and add things like Zoom. If we were adding Zoom links to this course, we can add those Zoom meetings, we can add VoiceThread. And once you add this VoiceThread UAA and click on it, then that process is going to be very similar to what you're doing in original. It's just how you're adding it is going to be initially different. This is also where we would go if we were adding Kaltura videos. So that's the other main way that we're adding content into our course. The Gradebook gives you that overview. And then there are multiple ways. So I can go in and look at the specific items and go into what needs to be graded for those items. I can go to my grade table, which is going to look fairly familiar to you from original, right, with all of the columns. I can also go into the student view and get that overall grade. And if I click on a user, I can get more information about that user. Or I can do it from the user, I can do it from here. I can also set up some basic accommodations. So if I'm doing, for example, timed tests, I can set that and say that Catherine always gets time and a half. That's going to be 50% more time, and save that. And that will be applied to all of the tests. The other thing I can do when I'm in here is send that a message directly to the student. I will say that the messages tool is much more prominent. And so you're going to see that students using that more. And we're still in some negotiations as to what level of access that tool is set on. So I'm not going to go into the details now because that may change in the next couple of months. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show quickly in here is discussions. So here is that initial post for a discussion. The responses are going to sort of thread underneath it. You'll see you can still embed video, links, audio, whatever else you want to put in there, images. But instead of having the list of discussion threads, it's just going to give you that whole discussion in sort of a social media feel. This works very well for sort of small to medium classes. For very large ones, it can be a little harder to manage because you have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You do also have that option when you're in as the instructor, right, to go in through the grade view to make sure you don't miss comments, but you're not seeing them all in context. In that way, it's like Blackboard Original. One thing that I think is better about the discussion tool for Ultra is doing group discussions. So I'm going to go back to this one. And let's say I have this discussion and I realized, oh, that should have been a group discussion, or when I'm creating it in the first place, I know that it's going to be a group discussion. So right now I have this set to teams. I'm going to go back in and edit. There we go. Now it is a normal discussion. Now I'm going to click assign to groups and make it a group discussion. And at this point, I can either reuse a set that I have, my class teams from the semester. And you can see I have 2 teams. One of them is empty. That's why it's the phantoms. Or I can create new teams just for this discussion, or new groups. Or I can create self-enrollment. So for example, if I wanted to have 2 groups, one of them was going to discuss Monday through Thursday, and one of them was going to discuss Friday through Sunday, I could put those as the names of the 2 groups they could self-enroll into, and students could automatically sign up for the discussion timeframe that worked with their schedule. Or if I wanted to have a choice of 2 topics, only have one discussion that I was grading, I could do it that way. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and do my default teams, and you'll see when I'm in here, this would be one team's discussion, this would be the second. Now, each group will only see their option when they go in. If you've worked with groups and group discussions in Blackboard Original, you can see this is a lot easier. And it's the same thing for assigning groups for assignments or tests. You only have one column in the grade center, in the grade book, and you can make it a group assignment really quickly. Go back to the slides at this point, or take a look at sort of the summary of the differences here. Right, Original is more customizable. There are more tools available. Most of those tools have more ways to customize them. We've also found that, in particular, if you have Blackboard tests where you have set up feedback by answer, so not just correct feedback, incorrect feedback, but if they give incorrect answer A, tell them to go study this. If you give incorrect answer B, tell them to go study that. That kind of feedback, we don't have that ability. So that's one reason why some of the people who were in the summer pilot decided not to transition at this point. Ultra is cleaner. I do think it's a little easier to use, and faculty have been saying that the students are finding it a lot easier to use. I think group work is a much simpler. It's designed to work better on mobile devices, which is a double-edged sword. I personally love the progress tracker tool. We are adding in some of the AI design tools to play with a little bit. And the other thing is that Blackboard is still supporting Original, but it is not developing Original, and it hasn't been developing Original for a while, which means Original is static and it's been getting more out of date. Ultra is improving. They're adding new features, they're adding new tools. They are being very responsive to what those requests are and what universities are asking for, what faculty need. The flip side is, because it's improving, there are those changes that you as an instructor sometimes need to respond to. So that was just a really quick overview of the platform. As always, when in doubt, ask us.